Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Love Encompassed podcast. I am Victoria.
And of course, I'm Phil.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd have to be. Who else am I going to be?
you're right. Anywho.
I mean, that's who I am. You know what I'm saying?
Are you done?
Yep. I think.
Anyway, so today we're just going to get right into it, right? We were talking about, like we normally do, about what we were going to talk about and just kind of shooting ideas. And you came up with a really, really great one because of a recent coaching session that you had with a couple.
Yeah. Yeah. So oftentimes what happens is we just start in any relationship, marriage or any other relationship. We always think about stuff that's like, oh, well, you need to change this, or we need to get better in this, and we need to get better in that. And I think a lot of times what happens is we stop with what do we do good?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that's like, oh, what's working?
Yeah.
We don't ever talk about what's working. We always talk about what's not working. And then that's what we focus on all the time.
And there's nothing wrong with like having goals. There's nothing wrong with saying, okay, here are some challenges that we are working through. But basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, if we're not careful, we can be so focused and be so consumed about what's not going right in our relationship or relationships, whether you're married, single, with your family, friends, whomever, and you stop focusing on the things that are going right. And you have a saying that you like to use, whatever you tend to focus on tends to kind of like...
Yeah, that's what you'll give most of your attention to. Whatever you focus on and give your attention to, that's the way you're going to go. So if you're focused constantly on, we have to change, we have to do this, we've got to be better, we've got to be better, it's like there's never a win. It's like the goalpost just keeps moving all the time. And when you keep doing that in a relationship or a marriage or something like that, what ends up happening is you don't ever feel like you're winning in the marriage.
Or, that person never does this, that person never does that. Oh my gosh, they left their stuff on the ground again. Oh my gosh, I asked her to do this and she didn't do it. And you, like you said, you start getting so frustrated to the point where you're like, you forget about like, hey, that's not the only that's like the only thing about this person.
Yeah. And we've done that. So like we'll be riding in a car and like you'll ask me or you'll be like, hey, what do I need to do better? What do I need to do better?
And then you say, trick question.
Yeah. And then I say, you're not getting me this time. Nice try. But it's like, well, what do I need to do better? Because you're kind of like, you're driven. I'm driven. We want to constantly keep growing. So we're like, what do we need to do better? Am I communicating good? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Am I doing this? What? Instead of saying, hey, love the way you're handling this.
Yeah.
Love when you do this. Love when you do that. Love how you're loving me. Love this. Love that. And
or,
then
hey, I see
changes.
what you're doing. I see your efforts. I appreciate it. I see that you're trying to change. I appreciate it. And I see it. And I want to say thank you.
Yeah. And so, like, I have an addiction to Farmville. And so...
you got to tell them what Farmville is for those that don't know.
Yeah, it's called Township. It's a game, but it's basically you're just farming, and it's a useless game, means nothing. But it's like I'm constantly on the go, moving, everything else. And it's just a chance to, like, veg for, like, 30 seconds, a minute, sometimes longer.
Yeah.
And
takes you a minute only, yeah.
And
Times
so...
20.
Then what starts to happen is you'll be like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. Hey, you're constantly on that game. You're doing this, you're doing that, And then what will happen is I'm like, all right, I have to be better. So then I'll start putting the phone down when she talks, whatever. And you do a great job of saying, hey, I recognize what you're doing. And I appreciate the fact that you're not, staying on your phone while I'm talking to you.
I try to do that with you. And I try to do that with the boys because I feel like I don't want to be that person because the Bible talks about that, like the contentious woman in the Bible. It's like a dripping of water.
Like a dripping faucet.
Yeah. I don't want to be...
rather live on a rooftop than with that woman.
I don't want to be this person that's constantly bringing up negative, what you need to do, what you need to work on. And then it's like the moment I open up my mouth, I don't want to be like, oh my gosh, here she goes again. What's she talking about now? So I try to, okay, yeah, I'm going to address some things I don't like or, hey, you have to work on. But then when I do see it, I do try to celebrate it because I want you to know, like, hey, I see it. I appreciate it. Because I think people want to feel appreciated. They want to feel like, hey, you know what? You don't always look at what I can't do. Because I think we can be hard enough on ourselves.
Yeah,
We don't need
100%.
somebody else letting us know how
100%.
we just don't have it together. So that's why I try to do that. You know what I mean? Because I think it's, and as well as I think it also helps to encourage that behavior. Because if you do try to work on something, especially if someone brings it to your attention and you're working on that thing and they don't acknowledge that, hey, I see you doing it. I think sometimes, and maybe I'm speaking of myself, it's easy for you to fall into a space of being like, you know what, just forget it. Like, I mean, it's danged if I do, danged if I don't. So I just won't.
Right. And I challenge people all the time. It's like, it's really easy. Like if I said, hey, what are 5 things I need to change? Or what are 5 things that you see that I need to change? It's like people can be like, bam, 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 bam. Like, what? It's like, well, what are 5 things I'm doing really well? It's like, you know what? Let me think about that for a minute and I'll get back to you. And I can fall into this because both of our boys are athletic and they play basketball. And so we will go to a game and we'll get done with the game and they'll be like, hey, how'd you do? And I immediately am like, hey, you need to play better defense. You need to rebound. Your shot was a little off. I can fall right into that trap because it's so easy to do. And they're probably thinking, dude, can you just tell me, like, did I play good? You know, was I better than what I was just? And so I have to be like, hey, you did these things really well.
Yeah.
Here's a couple things you can work on, but here's what you did really well.
And it's important that we are aware when we are doing it with our children, because depending on their personality, if we're not careful when we are doing that, if we immediately go into the negative with our kids when they have done something, and I think we're trying to come from a place of love because we want to help you grow, we want to help you be better. But if we're not careful, if we always lead with the negative, I think subconsciously we're teaching them to do that as well with themselves.
Right. And
unless you're Preston.
Right. Unless you're our youngest. But it's like you can pick yourself apart.
Yeah.
And I love what you said. It's like we're already harder on ourselves than most people are. And most people are hard on themselves. They don't like looking at themselves in the mirror. They don't like, a great test would be if you were, not if you're listening to this while you're driving, it's a bad time. But if you're just listening to this, write down all the things that you think you can do better about yourself. And then take a minute and see what do I like about me?
Yeah.
And most of the time, it takes people longer to do the what do I like about me rather than the what are the things I need to grow on.
Yeah. And I joke when I said Preston, because I do feel like I have learned so much from just watching our boys. Preston does have a great approach when he is met with something negative. He'll be like, yeah, but did you see? And then he'll like verbalize a positive.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing in doing that, because like you said, we've been saying how we can naturally lead with negative sometimes, even with ourselves. It's hard to, and I'll even own up to it. Like I tried to do that one time, sit down and like, okay, Victoria, these are the things you need to work on. Okay, what are 5 things I love about myself? What are 5 things that I'm doing well?
Yeah.
What are 5 things that I think I'm killing it in? And I'm sitting there like I'm like at a math test trying to figure out a word problem.
Right.
Like, dang it. Like, you know what I mean? So it is difficult. So even if it's just one thing that you have to start with, not even with just yourself, if there's one positive thing you can start with to start that ball rolling, what's one positive thing about your children or child that they're doing that you can start with? What's one positive thing about your parent, about your spouse? Like, yes, we can grow. Yes, we can develop. Yes, we can change. Yes, there may be things to work on, but don't let that be the filter in everything that you move and do forward in with life. Like, don't forget about the positives and celebrate them when you see it.
Yeah. And that's especially in a marriage or a relationship. It's like you may be listening to the podcast and you're like, all right, we're listening to it because we need to grow and we need to get better. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do. We're trying to help people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, look at the cool things that you do well.
Yeah.
Like as a couple, you guys are you do well, or you know what I mean? Like focus on that stuff too. And I would encourage you to spend more time on saying that stuff to each other. Like, hey, I love the way we approach
Yeah.
our kids, or I love the way that we do this, or I
Yeah.
love the way that we do that. Instead of, man, because the comparison game is rough.
Yeah.
Especially on social media. Because you get on social media and you think everybody's madly in love all the time. And it's like, people aren't. Right. But it's like that comparison game can be really tough.
Yeah.
And you start thinking, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we need to be like them.
Yeah.
But you don't know how them are behind the scenes.
Or even if it's like we need to be like them, you feel like you're missing out because you're watching something that you're secretly desiring in your own life or whatever, and you feel like, well, man, I don't have that. So does that mean what I have is less than, or I don't have that? So there's something wrong with what we have going on because I don't have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And then what happens is you focus on, I don't have that.
Right.
And then that's the only thing that you're talking to your spouse about.
Yeah.
It's like, well, so-and-so and so-and-so, they do date nights. And we were talking to a couple recently, just joking around, and they were telling us about how they're like, oh, yeah, man, we go out, like, we'll leave our kids at home and blah, blah, blah. And the whole time I was thinking, we don't do that. They're like, we'll just run out for a couple hours, in the night. Yeah. And I'm like, by the time we get home at night, we're like, I don't want to do nothing else.
Yeah. Or we try to plan it out. Like, okay, they're not gonna be home. Like, I'll be honest, that's a good point that you said that. Like, when was the last time we were spontaneous and say, I mean, it's not like they're not old enough. So when was the last time we were spontaneous?
Yeah, that's not the subject though right now. We're focused on what we're doing well. The next podcast will be over spontaneous ideas.
Okay, so the thing we do well is that when we are with each other, we are with each other and we are enjoying each other. The thing we can work on while we're focused on that positive is throwing in that, like, hey, surprise, surprise, we're going to go out and do something.
We're supposed to be focusing on what we do well.
I feel like that is. Because here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. I feel like I got really high pitched then. I got excited.
She's like, we're going on a date, and if I got to do this publicly, he's going to take me out.
Because here's the thing, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience, is that sometimes I can be so focused on what I have to do and what I need to work on. If I'm not careful, if I don't start thinking about the positives, I will start having a twisted idea or point of view of what my life really is like or what the situation really is.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's not as bad. Once I really step back and look at it, I'm like, okay, Victoria, it's not as bad. Or, hey, that is actually a great thing that's happening in your life because I chose to step back and be like, okay, let me look at this. Let me, like, calm myself down and, get myself together. But I feel like in my life, I've noticed that when I'm so focused on the negative, when I'm so focused on what I need to do, what I need to change, what I need to fix, what can I do better, that my point of view of what the situation really is, how that person really is not actually really what it is. So I think that's another reason why you have to be like, okay, I'm not saying you don't recognize, like we've been saying, like, okay, I can recognize maybe that person does need some growing or whatever, but I can choose to celebrate the good things about that person while they get their life together or while I get mine.
And go on dates.
Yeah.
Spontaneously.
Gosh, but you're so right. It's just like, I mean, it's like what we talked about last week. Like sometimes you just get busy. Yeah. And when you do get home, I'm just keeping it real. Sometimes when we do get home, we'll be like, we will just watch TV in bed. Or we will just, lay next to each other and talk. And I feel like
good times when we're just watching basketball games together. Those are the best. We're quiet. We're just watching the game. No one's saying nothing. Yeah. Those are good times.
But
I love it when you do that.
Yes. But I think just to be transparent in that, I feel like we're getting off subject a little bit here. Be transparent with that, though, is that I think because we so enjoy each other and love each other and love being around each other that if I am just in the room alone with you, I find that just as satisfying as going out on a date with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, like you said, we can't get stuck on the rut and do that.
Yeah, that was a different podcast. Don't try to bring that one up. But in all honesty, like, you've got to stay positive about your relationship.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's not things you have to work on. I'm not saying that there's things you don't have to grow in. But think positive. And I'm not just talking about marriage or whatever. I'm talking about with your kids. It's like, they're driving me nuts. They're not doing this, this, and this. Yeah, but there's a lot of things they probably are doing right that you don't really think about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, they are doing a lot of things right.
So what are some ways, right? We talked about being positive, focusing on the positive, all that. What are some ways because you can say it, but then when it's time to do it, it's easier said than done. So what are some ways when you catch yourself going down the trail of the negative, how you can catch it so that you can shift back into the positive while you're waiting or while you're working on or while they are working on whatever that needs to be worked on?
I think you can catch yourself by everyone can recognize when you're starting to be like, hey, you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. We need to do this. There has to be a moment where you pause for a second and say, wait a second. I have said 5 things that we need to work on or 5 things that are negative. I haven't said anything positive. You know, instead of when you walk in the door, you're like, what's for dinner tonight? It's been a long day. You know, the kids are blah, 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 blah. Maybe just focus for a second. Say, hey, missed you today. Man,
Yeah.
I appreciate the text that you sent me today.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, here's the thing is what I've noticed with people and doing marriage coaching and stuff like that. People think about it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, man, I really appreciated the way they did that. And it's like,
Yeah.
what did you tell them? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
Nah, I didn't say anything to them. And it's like, take that moment.
Yeah.
And I tell people too, it's like, hey, when you do think about somebody and you're thinking something positive about them, shoot them a text.
Yeah.
So if it's your spouse and you're like, man, I really liked the way they cooked dinner last night,
Yeah.
then tell them.
Or a text that says, I'm thinking of you. I miss you. You know, little things like that. Even with your children. Hey, I love you. I'm thinking of you. Hey, I noticed that, you know, you're dealing with a lot right now, and I just want you to know that I'm here for you, or whatever the case is. I would also, so basically what you're saying is like, stop the thoughts, right? That when your thoughts start going down that way of, oh, here we go, or here this person's doing this, or whatever.
Yeah.
Stop that train of thought and say, okay, all right, hold on. Before we go down that road, I'm not saying we don't recognize and we don't approach, hey, this is what is going on, that whatever. But stopping the negative mind process and thoughts that leads to where now you're in a funky mood, now you're acting funky toward that person.
Now you're picking at them.
Now you're picking at them. So just kind of stopping that thought and being like, okay, did they do that? Yes. Did they work my nerve? Yes. But you know what? Maybe they're having a bad day, or, oh, no, we're not going to go down this road. All right. Okay. I'm going to not trip off of it, and I'm going to focus on, you know, this or that. I also believe in the sandwich approach.
Yes, you do.
The sandwich approach, if you don't know what the sandwich approach is I like to start off with something sweet. In the middle, be like, hey, blah, 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 this is blah, 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 and then end it with something sweet. So I'll be like, hey, babe, I think you're really awesome. Or even with the boys, hey, you know, guys, I think you're awesome. I think you're doing a great and amazing job. However, lately, you've been doing this, this, and this that's really been frustrating lately, and I would really appreciate if you would start working on that. But, you know, I don't want you to think that I don't love you, because I do, and I think you're amazing.
Right. And try to mix it up.
Yeah.
You can't just say, you're hot. You got a bad attitude, and you're smoking hot again. It doesn't work that way.
If you said, babe, you're hot. You've been having a bad attitude lately, but you're hot.
But you're hot. I feel like I just sandwiched approached it.
Yeah, you just say whatever you want in the middle as long as it's surrounded by something nice.
It's like when people say no disrespect, it's going to be disrespectful. Well, I'm glad that you guys joined us on the podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Stay positive. Look at your relationships, all of them, whether they're marriage, with your kids, your friends, whoever it is, even your job. Try to focus on the positive. Don't focus on the negative so much. And we enjoyed this podcast today. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Absolutely. And if you are watching this on our YouTube channel, Love Encompass Podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we would love for you to continue to follow. And if you haven't followed us on Apple or Spotify, do that as well. Hey, make sure you share this episode. If you are enjoying this as much as we are and you feel like there's another couple or a single or whomever that you think that would really benefit from this podcast, we would love it so much if you would share. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Love Encompass Podcast, as well as mine, Victoria Clemens, and his, which is Phil Clemens, or Philip Clemens. Which one?
Phil Clemens.
I forgot. Sorry. Anyways, we are so grateful for you listening, and we can't wait to talk to you next week.
See you next time.